Hi and welcome back to episode 2 of season 2 of my new Factorio playthrough. My name is Poober and we are picking up exactly where we left off in the previous episode where we just got done putting in our new electrical steam engine setup. We haven't actually hooked it up into anything yet, so we're going to go ahead and do that now and hopefully get some automation by the end of today's episode. We finally have our first electric mining drills getting created as we speak, and then we'll finally be able to use our newfound electricity. But we're over here near our iron patch, and if you notice we have nothing working in this section over here, and that is because our iron patch below the miners has already been depleted. So we don't have any iron plate coming in, which is a huge problem early game. So we're going to essentially have to rip everything up here and start over and redo our mining section to our iron ore patch. Well everyone, here's our new iron ore mining setup. The last thing we have to do before it's really up and running is to hook it up into our electric system. So I've got over 50 small electric poles after farming a bunch of trees, so we'll go ahead and hook it up now with the electric poles just going east to west, and then we'll go south towards our steam engine setup. And I'm just making sure to look at the minimap here to make sure I don't go too far past where I think it ends. And here we go, that should line up fairly well. We'll just start from here and then now go back up. Whoops, and looks like there's a tree in the way. And that's the last one. So now we do have electricity over there as evidenced by the 4 electric miners turned on now. So now it's just a waiting game, waiting for our iron plate to build back up, and then we can work on getting more miners. And then finally we have hopefully enough plates of either iron and copper to really focus on our automation at that point. Well, in between cuts I tried to make sure that we were prepared for the automation process. So I now have 1 lab ready to go, 10 inserters, and then I even have 20 red science packs ready to go, so by the time we get our first lab down, we can actually get the automation process researched. So we'll go ahead and do that now. We'll just put our lab just somewhere. Here's fine. I'm sure it will be temporary. And then the next thing we have to do is just press T and then research. Now automation is the first thing we want to research because that will allow us to unlock the assembly machine and inserters that are electric. The next thing after that I will want to focus on either optics so that you guys can actually see at night, or logistics, which will be very important as well. It's always kind of a toss-up which one to get next, but the logistics in particular will allow me to get the underground belts, the blue inserters, which are the faster ones, and then the splitters as well, which will help me to divide up the resources more evenly. But in the meantime, all we have to do now is wait, so I'll be back in another cut here once it's done. Our research is just about to finish here, and it is. So we now have unlocked the assembly machine and a couple of these electric inserters now. We have the yellow, which is again electric, but the red one is the long-handed inserter, and that will allow us to distribute objects further distance than just these 2 alone. So the next thing on the agenda, we do still have 10 red science packs left over, so let's go ahead and see. Do we want to do logistics, which is this one here, although that would take 20, or we can do optics, which is 10, which is what we have. I'm going to say optics actually. There's always time for the logistics later. And that's assuming we don't have a biter problem. In fact, let's take a look at our map and just see exactly how we're doing in terms of our pollution. So when I explored on the map earlier, we did have these biter nests kind of outlying in the perimeter over here. But it looks like our pollution right now isn't reaching that far. But of course, some biters might have crept in a little bit closer in the meantime. So we'll want to eventually get our turrets and some defense up and running here pretty soon as well, but first things first, let's research these optics. Looks like we weren't able to get to it in time before night was able to come, so it might get a little dark here. But what we can start doing is in our pocket making a couple assembly machines, and this way we can actually start getting automation of our red science packs, which will become our next priority so that we can continue to do more and more research. But I think we do want to try and stick to our ratios as much as we can as early as possible, but for now we won't worry about that as much. So what we can do is I'm trying to think of where we want to set up our assembly machines. Is I know we need one devoted to iron gears and then to the red science packs themselves. So let's actually move this one here. We'll call this one will be our iron gear wheels, and I'm actually going to move this over a little bit. I can never make up my mind where I want things. Now, iron gear wheels are going to become very useful for our red and green science and a ton of other things we're going to be needing early game. So I do want this kind of in the middle here so I can branch it off and do a lot of different things with it. So this one we know is iron gear wheels, and let's go ahead and we'll feed it a stack for now. And then this one will be red science packs. So this one will take straight up copper plate in addition to the iron gear wheels, and we have our inserters ready to go. And then we can just go ahead and direct insert from the red science packs into our one sad little lab that we have here. We'll add on to that in the future though. And then another thing we can do is just put a box right nearby with some copper in it so that that can directly be fed into our red science pack machine. There we go. Let's hook it up with some more electricity, of course. Just like that. And let me double check our power. I want to make sure we're not overdoing it, which we're not. And let's make sure that these still have plenty of coal, which they do for now. Again, we're not having a huge draw on our electricity at the moment. Oh, and good, our optics are finally done. So now it's a no-brainer, it is logistics. So these will now start to get automated. So the next 20, which are required for the logistics research, will be all made from this one assembly machine. So now that we have red science taken care of, we can now worry about green. So for the green science, that takes the transport belts, the yellow ones in particular, and then it also takes the yellow inserters. Those are also conveniently things that I will happen to require for building around the base, so it's very important that we at least get the inserters and the belts automated as early on as possible, even if they're not ratio perfect with their production early on. So let's start with belts. Belts also require iron plate and iron gear wheels, and the inserters again also take belts and iron gear wheels. So, but I forgot we cannot yet devote an assembly machine to the inserters yet until the logistics is done, but that's okay. We can still do the assembly machine for the transport belts. So we'll go ahead and use this one here for the belts. That's why I had the wheel assembly machine in the middle, so it can also feed into either red or the belts. And what else do we need? We need a box devoted to our iron plate. So we'll just kind of mirror what we have on the other side here. And put up our electrical pole, and then we just need an output for the belts. We'll go ahead and do something like this for now. Make sure, if you guys are new to the game, that you be aware that you do need to, or at least it's recommended that you put a cap on your products, or else it will overproduce the item, and then you've just wasted a ton of resources. So for the belts for now, I'm going to actually cap it off at 2 stacks, because that should be plenty to devote either to science or to my personal needs around the base for this early game. Well, now that we have that done, all we have to do now is wait for our logistics research to get done, and then we can focus on getting our inserters automated. Well, our logistics research has come and gone, and this looks a little bit different than the previous cut. Some of the big changes are the fact that we have now an underground belt that goes between the original lab as well as an additional lab here to the right. We have a couple more assembly machines and then a ton more boxes, inserters, and electrical poles. And the reason why I've done all of this off camera is because I totally forgot that you cannot automate inserters yet at this point in the game. I've even researched electronics, so at this point what we need to do next is go ahead and research a couple more things before we can really work on getting our inserters automated or onto green science automation. So I believe for the inserter automation we either have to research automation 2 or logistics, but I'm going to take my guess with automation 2. It's been a while since I've done the early game, so I cannot quite remember, but I know either way we should be on our way towards getting some inserters researched. But in the meantime, we did build up quite a decent stack worth of our transport belts so that we can use it once we can unlock the Green Science Pack automation, and we can use it around the base. So for one last cut of the episode, let's go ahead and we'll return once our ability to make inserters is here. At last, we finally have our automation 2 done. It took quite a while since we only have one red science pack assembly machine, but I do have one blue assembly machine now ready to go. So we'll replace it over this one here and go ahead and see if we can put in our inserter recipe, which we can. I am so glad and thankful for that. It's been a long journey getting to this point for some reason. It's been a really difficult start. But now this should be getting automated. We have all of the other assembly machine components in place and ready to go for this. I just want to double check here that everything is working as it should be. So this is our primitive green circuit setup that I did a couple of cuts ago off camera. It is not the perfect ratio, but we do have it working nevertheless. Just our copper cable is fed from this shared copper plate box. The copper cable goes into the green circuit assembly machine where we then have that transferred via the long-handed inserter into our now fancy stage 2 blue assembly machine. Any of our surplus circuits go in this box here, but then theoretically we should have our inserters being made here, but they're not, and that is because I forgot that they also take some other components I wasn't thinking about, but that is okay. That is a very easy to solve problem this time around. We'll go ahead and just put some items in a box here that are needed. One of those things is the iron plate, but these do also require iron gear wheels, which is again another reason why I wanted this pretty accessible in the middle, but I am slowly running out of room. So what I could do, maybe, can I move this power pole and put it there? And then perhaps I can do that. Yes, so that will work. So we will end up having kind of an odd configuration over here, but it's okay if it's odd looking as long as it works for now. There we go, so that's how we jerry-rigged it so it will get the iron gear wheels up to this assembly machine over here. This is most definitely one of the oddest looking setups I've ever built. But it looks like it is all functional now. We have our first green science packs getting fed onto this belt line here. It's also kind of a weird underground belt situation. We have the reds and the greens kind of not quite, but almost looking like they overlap each other. But the only reason why the green science packs are not getting into these labs is because we don't have a need for it at the moment. So we technically could start doing our first green science required research if we want to. I am thinking if we do, it should be logistics too, but I think we are not wealthy enough to really worry about that yet. To get to that point, I think we definitely need to overhaul this, but we are at least on our way. We now have our belts automated, our inserters automated, and so I think next time we'll focus on getting some other odds and ends automated, like our stone furnaces, the assembly machines themselves, and then focus on more large-scale production. So thanks for sticking around through this kind of cringeworthy episode this time, but I hope you'll join me for the next one, and I'll be seeing you guys soon.